Okay, you're on.
Perfect. Cheryl, thank you so much, both for the introduction and for being here today to support CLAPS and get us going this morning. So as Cheryl mentioned, I am an adjunct instructor in the School of Information Sciences at the University of Illinois, where I teach courses in instruction, e-learning, and academic librarianship. So my presentation today is about creating accessible instructional videos. This is very much going to be a workshop style presentation. It is going to be very, very practical about how to do this work, very much based in the skills that I teach my students in my e-learning class. To start, actually, I'm going to put a link in the chat, and that will take you to a Google folder that has a copy of my slides. It also has a couple of other resources that you can check out later, kind of a checklist of the accessibility features that I'm going to mention today. It also has a resource list and of some either research that I might mention in my presentation or resources that you can check out later that will have more detail about some of the things that I mentioned today. It also has my contact information if you want to get in touch later with a question. I mentioned that today is a very practical workshop. It is very much focused on creating accessible videos. I know that there are other issues we should be thinking about with our e-learning around inclusion. And I do want to mention that there was a presentation yesterday by Carrie Ann Cahill, Roseanne Matola, Chelsea Heinbach, and Amber Sewell from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, that was really about that broader issue of inclusion in tutorials. So their work is fantastic. They're kind of presenting some early work that they're doing, researching the state of tutorials in our libraries. I would totally recommend that you check out the recording of their session when it's available. Also, I know that Chelsea tweeted out their slides yesterday. If you weren't able to make their session and you want to get a sense of the work that they're doing, you can find that there. Okay, so with that, and as Cheryl mentioned, if you have questions as we're going along, please throw them in the chat. I like to try and answer questions as they come up, especially while we're maybe on a relevant slide or talking about a topic. If I miss your question, there will be Q&A time at the end of the session. And so please repeat that question. It didn't mean I didn't value your question. It just meant that between speaking and thinking, and then also trying to keep an eye on the chat, sometimes I will miss stuff. All right. And Cheryl is also going to try and keep an eye on any questions that I miss so that we can get to them at the end of the session. All right. What is going on with my PowerPoint here? There we go. Okay. So, our agenda for the next hour is we're going to start with a little bit of an introduction to disability and accessibility, give some context for the recommended practices, and then we'll get into how to create accessible videos. We're going to have just a brief exploration activity to go look at a few videos online and see what we find. And then, as I said, I'm trying to reserve about 10 minutes at the end of the session for some Q&A. So as we think about accessibility, I suspect that if you are here with us this morning, you already know that accessibility is important and you are concerned about making your materials accessible. But it's always nice to have a reminder about the many reasons why accessibility is important, and sometimes to be able to share those reasons with colleagues, right, who might be a little bit more resistant. So number one, accessibility is a legal obligation. There are laws that require that our library materials and resources and programs be accessible to people with disabilities. It is also our professional responsibility. We say that as librarians, we provide equitable access to information to all of our patrons. And to me, that means that our materials, including things like the videos on our website, need to be accessible to our patrons with disabilities. And one thing that is perhaps important to keep in mind is that there is research on the state of accessibility in library e-learning videos and tutorials. So Amanda Clausen and Paul Process did a study. It was published in 2017. You can find the citation in my resource list. And they looked at videos on academic library web pages and found that only 52% were properly captioned, and many had additional accessibility problems. So, based on that research, a lot of our libraries are failing at both a legal and professional level in terms of accessibility. We also want to keep in mind that accessibility improves learning for everyone. So we might think about adding captions to our videos because they're really necessary for our deaf or hard of hearing patrons, but captions are used by all kinds of people, right? They are used by patrons who are studying someplace that's really noisy, like a coffee shop, or maybe there's someplace really quiet, like the quiet floor in our library. Maybe they are parents who are studying at home at night when other family members are sleeping. Non-native speakers use captions and really benefit from captions. So a lot of these accessibility features are improving learning for all of our patrons. Finally, we want to think about accessibility as part of the design process. It can be very time-consuming and expensive to add accessibility retroactively, and some accessibility cannot be added retroactively. So we need to be thinking about this early on and really integrating it into our design processes. I thought we would start with a little bit of interaction. I put a link in the chat, which will take you to an Answer Garden poll. And really quickly, one or two words, what comes to mind when you hear the phrase accessibility for videos? So you can type in an answer. You actually can put in more than one. And if you'd like to see the Answer Garden building, it is a word cloud. If you refresh your browser a couple of times, it will refresh. I also see some folks putting comments in the chat, which is fine. We can see that almost all of these responses, the first thing we think about is captions, right? Which is really important. I see some folks talking about kind of broader issues that when we think about accessibility, it's about being inclusive and usable for all. And I see a few other things like descriptive audio, which is great to see, color contrast. I see complicated. Maybe today we can show that it's not as complicated as sometimes I think people fear that it's going to be. Right? I love this comment in the chat about describing what you're showing on the screen clearly. These are great comments, and we're going to look at all of these things this morning. I'm going to turn our attention back to the slides. Yeah, and Justina, unfortunately, often an afterthought. So in order to talk about accessibility in videos, it helps to have an understanding of disability. Keep in mind that a significant percentage of our patrons do have a disability. In the US as a whole, it's about 26% of people have a disability. For those of us in academic libraries, which I think is most of us here today, for undergraduate students, it's 19% of undergraduate students have a disability. Graduate students, that percentage is a little bit lower. It's 12% of graduate students. So this is a significant percentage of our patrons. Disability is usually divided into four broad categories: auditory, visual, physical, and cognitive. Auditory disabilities include patrons who are hard of hearing or deaf. Keep in mind that auditory disabilities are a spectrum, so it can be where people have difficulty hearing like soft sounds or sounds in certain ranges. Visual disabilities include our patrons who are blind, but also folks who are have low vision, have perhaps a narrow range in their field of vision. It also includes color blindness. Physical disabilities includes mobility issues. I think we often think of physical disabilities as patrons who might be using wheelchairs or using other kinds of mobility aids, but keep in mind that physical disabilities also include those related to fine motor skills. So disabilities that might make it difficult to do very fine or quick movements with your hands. And also patrons who might be navigating a computer with an alternative input device, like a pointer stick. Cognitive disabilities is a very broad category. It includes developmental disabilities. It also includes learning disabilities that affect how people process information. So, for example, difficulty maybe processing auditory information or visual information. It also includes attention deficit disorders and autism and other neurological differences. So thinking about these 4 categories, let's look at how these might apply then to designing accessible videos. And I do want to say again, this morning, I'm really just focused on accessibility in videos, not looking at all kinds of other accessibility issues that are important, right? But just are outside of the scope of what I'm going to talk about today. So when we think about auditory disabilities, we want to ensure that patrons can either hear the content in our video, so we want to have nice, clear audio, or that there is an alternative way of accessing any audio content, and that's where we get into captions and transcripts. For patrons with visual disabilities, we want to make sure that all of our content in a video is going to be legible. So large, simple fonts for any text that's in a video, strong color contrast, so things like text and images really pop out from the background. We want to avoid using color to indicate meaning because that might be lost then for folks with color blindness. With visual disabilities, we often talk about alt text, and we might think that alt text isn't as relevant for a video where folks aren't going to be using a screen reader, but I know that some of us do put copies of, let's say, slides. If you're making an instructional video that's going to go into a course management system, in addition to the video, you might put a copy of the slides that students can access later. And if you have any images in your slides, you'll need to make sure that there is that alt text, that text description of the image that can be accessed by a screen reader to tell the user what the image is or what kind of information it contains. We also look at audio description for videos. So audio description is a verbal description of what is being seen on screen. Audio description you can find these days really easily in television shows, and it will tell you things like when a character enters the room or what a character is doing, or maybe facial expressions. So that gives users who are blind or have limited vision an understanding of what is happening in the video that they can't see beyond perhaps just what's being said. We also want to make sure that anything we create is going to be compatible with a screen reader and also compatible with keyboard navigation, since our users who are blind or using a screen reader are probably not using the mouse, right? They're going to be using their keyboard to access information. In terms of physical disabilities, again, with videos, we're thinking right now primarily about either folks with fine motor related disabilities, again, trouble maybe mousing, moving quickly. So we want to make sure that anything we create has large buttons or controls that are easy to find and click on, that anything we create is compatible with keyboard navigation, and also if there's anything that's going to be timed, that folks have an adequate amount of time to respond before, let's say, the video moves on. In terms of cognitive disabilities, again, here really thinking about patrons who might have learning disabilities. We want to ensure that our materials have a consistent, intuitive navigation, that we're using clear, simple text and narration. Any audio is reasonably paced, Any visuals are staying on screen for a sufficient amount of time for people to study them and process that information. And we want to be very careful to avoid extraneous sound and images. This tends to be this can really be an issue with instructional videos, where instructors add extraneous sounds like background music, or they add decorative images to make things more exciting, right? And what happens is that creates some cognitive overload for folks, where it's either distracting, or they're trying to figure out if that content is actually important and something they should be paying attention to. And if it's extraneous, right, that's just taking some cognitive attention away from what we really want them to be learning, which might be how Boolean operators work or how to search a particular interface. I do want to quickly mention there are technical standards for accessibility. The WCAG, and I have put a couple of links to explanations of the WCAG accessibility guidelines in that resource list. From a legal standpoint, most federal and state agencies point to WCAG 2.0, which dates from 2008 as the legal standard for accessibility. Since then, there has been an update in 2018, and they're currently working on an update that will be WCAG 2.2. These are actually supplements to 2.0. They don't replace 2.0. They supplement it with some additional accessibility guidelines. The important part that we're going to kind of look at today is that the WCAG principles are based on the acronym POUR, that content should be perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. So, perceivable. Information, and this is for WCAG, they're looking at web pages, they're looking at documents, they're looking at media, right? Information must be perceivable to users through at least one of their senses. Essentially, people must be able to see, hear, or read the content that is on our website or in a video. It also must be operable. So the interface, like your video player, any components on your web page must be operable. So patrons need to be able to interact with websites and media by clicking links, filling in forms, selecting buttons and other interactive features, including with the use of a keyboard only or an alternative input device. In terms of videos, people should also be able to control the video speed and the ability to play back material. So essentially, we want people to be able to pause our videos and rewind them if they'd like to review some of that content. Our content also needs to be understandable. So people need to be able to understand both the content and the interface. Our content should be well organized, and that organization should be clear to the user, and content should be written in clear, simple language that people can understand. And our interfaces should follow an intuitive design. The understandable criteria really gets to this issue, right, of cognitive processing that I see a few folks commenting on in the chat. And I agree with Debbie that cognitive overload is so underrated when it comes to designing tutorials. And in fact, if you're interested in looking more at cognitive load in general and design, the person to really look at is the research of Richard Mayer. I'll put that name in the chat. He is really the guru of how people learn in e-learning. Very, we're looking at decades of research on this topic. And I've recommended a couple of books in that resource list that would be a great place to get started. So if you really want to dig into cognitive, supporting cognitive processing, reducing cognitive overload, that is a great place to start. Okay, and finally, in terms of the POUR principles, websites and media should be robust enough to work with a wide range of technologies, including assistive technologies. All right, so let's jump into designing our videos. And we're going to start with captions and transcripts, which is kind of funny because it's actually the last step in making our videos accessible, but it is the thing that most of us think about first. And understanding what we're going to do with captions and transcripts can also sometimes excuse me, I have to get rid of the cat. If we're thinking about captions and transcripts and even descriptive audio early in the process, it will affect how we do some of that early design work. All right, so really quickly, a quick sort of vocabulary lesson or review. People sometimes use the terms captions and subtitles interchangeably, and they are two different things. So captions are a text version of the audio track. It includes all of the speech and any other sounds that occur. So a ringing phone, laughter, background noises should be in the captions. Subtitles are actually a translation from another language, and they only address speech. They do appear in the same place as captions when you watch a video, so people sometimes use these terms interchangeably, but one thing to note is that with subtitles, they will not include other background noises, but captions need to include all of that background noise so that somebody who is deaf understands the context of what's happening in the video. You'll also see, of course, CART, that's live translations. So if you're at a live event like a conference, these are captions of a speaker's presentation. They will usually appear on a separate screen, and they are human generated by a professional who is listening and typing out those captions. And then, of course, if you're in Zoom, like we are today, or if you use something like Google Slides in a presentation, you can also do machine generated, artificial intelligence generated real-time captions. They're not perfect. CART isn't usually perfect either, but I will say that things like the AI generated captions in Zoom are really, really improving. But again, a little bit different. And again, sometimes people think these are the same thing, or that if they record in Zoom and turn on the captions, or the automatic captioning, that will take the place of real captions, but it doesn't, right? What we're talking about today are real captions that somebody has either created by hand or edited to be accurate. You may have also heard the terms open and closed captions. So open captions are embedded in the video stream. They cannot be turned off. One of the advantages is that the user doesn't need to know how to turn on open captions. They're just going to automatically appear. And they're usually used in settings like museums or a lobby kiosk, where you want captions to be the default, right? You want them to be on all the time. But generally with instructional videos, we want to add closed captions. These are captions that can be turned on and off by the user. Also with closed captions, users will typically have a lot of additional control where they can adjust the size of the captions, the color, the display. If you've ever used captions in something like Netflix or Apple TV, you know that you can really customize the display. So that is really nice for folks who need captions. Also, open captions, because they're always present and you can't turn them off, can cause some of that cognitive overload, or they can be distracting, right? So closed captions that people can turn off if they don't want to see them are really nice. Also, closed captions are potentially searchable, so they're great for a user who wants to review a video. When you create your captions, there are standards for captions, and I've given you some links in the resource list if you'd like to learn more about this. Captions should be verbatim. You should not correct what the speaker says. You should not alter what the speaker is saying. They are a literal verbatim translation of what the speaker is saying, including things like ums or misspoken words. If you have more than one speaker, you may need to indicate who's speaking. If it's not totally obvious, like there isn't a face on the screen that you know who's speaking, you'll want to indicate who's speaking. Again, captions should include all non-spoken audio content, so that laughter, background noise, music, and you can also try to capture the tone. If you have watched captions on TV, you'll notice that when background music is playing, it will say something like "scary music plays." Captions should use proper spelling, capitalization, punctuation, etc. They should be synced with the audio. They should be synced with the audio so that whatever is happening on screen, whatever the narrator is saying, that's what's appearing in the caption at that time. There's also standards for formatting captions. So you want 1 to 2 lines per caption and no more than 32 characters per line. And the reason you want a fairly short line of text is that it is quicker for people to skim as they're reading, and it causes less eye fatigue, which is going to be very important for people who are watching sustained set of captions. And you then also want to break with your natural speaking patterns. And again, there's a great resource in my resource list that gives you some great examples of how to break your captions with those natural speaking patterns. And then you want to make sure, if you are controlling the display of captions, that they're large enough and placed for easy readability. Also be careful that your captions aren't going to cover essential content. So when I make videos, I try to remember that maybe bottom quarter of my video is actually going to be covered by captions, and I try not to put important content at the bottom of slides, or that I'm not doing something on screen way at the bottom of my screen where the captions are going to be on top of it, right? So we kind of want to think a little bit about that ahead of time. Okay, somebody said, I see that the Google Drive didn't work, and I will check that at the end and try and get that fixed for you. And then okay, so Stacy asked, what if there's ambient noise, like a video where there are students talking outside someone's window? So one of the things to think about is, sometimes the captioning is like alt text contextual. If that noise is a constant distraction where the people being interviewed are pausing and looking outside, or they're pausing because the outside noise is too loud, I would say loud noise from outside, like in brackets, right? If not, if it's kind of a low-key hum throughout the background, you could mention it at the beginning of the video that there is some ambient noise. You probably don't need to mention it again. Okay. There are a couple of different options for generating your captions. One is that when you're done creating your video, you listen to it and you simply transcribe it, right? You just type it as you're going along. That is probably the most time consuming, and for me, the most boring way to generate captions. Another option is, if you carefully script your videos before you record them, then you'll be able, in almost any screen capturing software or hosting sites like YouTube, you can upload that script and then it will figure out the timings for you. It does a little bit of speech recognition, compares it with your script, and it figures out the timing, which is great. The other option, and I think this is what a lot of us use, is to use the auto caption feature that is built into a lot of video creation software and hosting sites, again, like YouTube. So here what happens is you upload your video, you indicate you would like it to auto caption, and it uses speech recognition to generate a set of captions. Now, the really, really important thing to know is that those captions are not completely accurate. You have to edit them. You have to edit them. The auto captioning, it'll tell you when you turn it on, right? You must edit these. The whole intent is it's getting you about 90% of the way there, but you have to finish the job. And accuracy does vary. At Illinois, we use a Kaltura-based media server where the accuracy is phenomenal. It's probably around like 96, 97% accurate. It even knows library jargon. It recognizes terms like EBSCOhost. I was shocked the other day. I made a video and I went to correct the auto captions, and it actually recognized and did proper capitalization of EBSCO. But there will be other things it doesn't, even the best software doesn't get. It often struggles with library jargon. It struggles with proper names. So other sites, and I will say that the service we use at Illinois is very good, but places like YouTube, accuracy is probably more like 80%. It doesn't add punctuation. It mishears a lot of words. And the other thing is, even really good auto captioning will mishear some words. I see a few folks, yeah, Jennifer's saying like she works at UConn and it often gives them UConn, like the place in Alaska. Deborah gave us a couple examples. My best example is I was looking at the captions for a video, and I had said front load some content, and it heard a very different F word. And so it just dropped an F-bomb right in the middle of my video, right? So we have to be really careful to go in and correct these things. And automatic captions, I will tell you, do not meet the legal standard for captioning. If you are relying on auto captions, there will be so many inaccuracies that they don't actually meet the legal standard. So you really have to go in and correct them. Nicole mentioned too, there are some paid services like 3Play Media that you also can contract out. So if you're doing a lot of video work, then you can contract that work out if you want to. Otherwise, you just need to plan, right? This is part of creating a video. Just like you're planning time to script it and record it and edit it, you have to plan some time to correct or create captions, right? Yes, and as Brittany says, right, like automatic captioning is so problematic for kind of non-generic Western names. This is one of my pet peeves about, frankly, professional conferences and professional organizations that do webinars, and then they put the recording online, but they don't correct the captions. And as a result, they really mangle speakers' names. If the speaker mentions scholars in the field, right, they mention Fobazi Attar. And the auto captions, I've never seen auto captions figure out how to spell her name, right? And I think that also then comes to, like, that's a lack of professionalism. It's also a lack of things like citational justice if we're not correcting these captions to get people's names correct. Okay, so auto captions are great. They really will save you so much time versus sitting down and typing it out yourself, right? Who wants to do that? But you got to go in and correct them. You just have to go in and correct them. You know, I would like it if Zorro could help me manage my references. That would be fantastic. Okay, we got to keep going though. See, I get really excited talking about accessibility and then I fall behind my schedule. Okay, so a transcript is just a single page document or a document that has a transcript of the entire video. Essentially, it's all the captions in one long document. It is, again, used by folks with, you know, auditory and cognitive disabilities, but it's also great for anybody who just wants to skim, maybe find a quote, check something that they heard in the video. Typically, you can generate transcripts from the captions, and you just use all the same rules. It should be verbatim, indicate your speakers, indicate background noises. You do want to format it for ease of reading, so don't just throw up a block of text, right? Do some nice paragraph breaks so that people can read it comfortably, and make sure that it is in an accessible medium. So usually if you're using any kind of hosting service, you can just put it in there as it's an HTML document. You could upload it as a properly formatted Word document and make sure it's easy to find on your website, okay? I mentioned descriptive audio earlier. So again, this is narration that describes what is happening on screen for users with visual disabilities. If you want to see some examples of this, I put some links to some sample videos in that resource guide. Also, services like Netflix and Apple TV have descriptive audio for all of their programming because it is actually the law for television programming. I don't think it's something we see as much in instructional videos, but it is something to be aware of because it is becoming both more common and kind of more expected, right? And I think eventually we're going to get to the point where it's potentially legally required. Descriptive audio is contextual. So you're not describing everything that happens in the video. You have to make decisions about what's important and then how to describe it. There are two types of descriptive audio. Standard fits into pauses in the dialogue or narration. If you watch a TV show, the descriptive audio is often just slid into pauses in the dialogue. There is also a version called extended, where essentially the video has to pause to make room for that descriptive audio. It is fun to listen to, isn't it, Naomi? Like, it's really fun to listen to. Now, one thing to know about descriptive audio is, particularly in instructional videos, number one, descriptive audio is very time consuming to create. much more so than like captions. It takes quite a bit of time. It takes some expertise to do good descriptive audio. You often have a scripter who writes it and then a narrator who voices it. But in our videos, we can avoid the need for descriptive audio if we just describe things as we narrate the original video. Right, so if you do a good job describing where on screen you are mousing and clicking, or you do a good job describing a graphic that's on a slide, you don't need separate descriptive audio added later. You just do it right when you do narration. So that's something to really consider as you are scripting and recording your videos. All right. So that was captioning and transcripts. Now we're going to look at some additional things that we can do to really make our videos accessible. Number one, we want to think about our content. We want to make sure that our content is very focused. Teach one skill per video. If you are covering complex material, like how to set up your Zotero and add citations and generate a references list, you break that into multiple videos. That allows people to focus on one skill at a time, pace how they're learning material to prevent that cognitive overload. Also, really think about eliminating unnecessary content. Sometimes you see these videos that have a lengthy introduction. It's 60 seconds before you actually get to the true content of the video because there's such a lengthy introduction. And that's really not necessary, and it is not what patrons want to listen to. Next, as you start recording, you want to think about your framing and your on-screen action. So try to focus the frame of that video on the essential content, right? Decide, do you need to show an entire browser window, or can you zoom in a little bit where maybe showing all your tabs isn't necessary? We want to try to avoid distractions from non-relevant content. And also when we zoom in a little bit more, all of the visuals are a little bit larger, right? Easier to see. If you are using software that lets you do some editing to zoom in on smaller content, then that is really fantastic as well. Okay, and then make sure that as you're mousing, as you're typing, that you're doing that smoothly, slowly enough that people can follow you, and try to be careful to avoid extraneous mouse movements or scrolling. I think that some of us, when we're talking, we just naturally play with the mouse. We don't notice it, but in the video, we can see your mouse moving around, or we see that you're scrolling, and that is obviously going to be distracting, right, to our users. If you are going to have text in your video, that is, maybe you're doing a slide cast, or maybe you are, maybe you've got like title slides for a video, maybe you've got some images that you're using and you've got labels or annotations on those. Make sure that everything is going to be really easy to read. So large, simple fonts, again, plain backgrounds. Really, we don't want to layer text on top of images. It can be very difficult for some folks to pick out the text from that background image. So you always want a nice plain background for your text, good, strong color contrast. Avoid those fancy transitions, avoid flashing, right? Avoid those effects. Again, very distracting for some of our users. Make sure that any text remains on screen long enough to be read. The rule of thumb is usually that's about twice as long as it might take you, the author, to read it. And then your writing should be concise, and it should also be, simple, direct sentences. Avoid jargon as much as possible. Images, if you are using images, let's say again on a slide cast, all of your images should have a purpose. We want to avoid those extraneous or decorative images that, again, can be distracting, or people are spending cognitive energy trying to understand why the image is there. Use a really simple, consistent design. As somebody pointed out earlier, like less is more. Avoid using color to indicate meaning. So if somebody's colorblind and they can't distinguish between those two colors, they're not going to understand your bar chart or your line graph if the only way you're distinguishing between two items is with color. So we always want to use something like labels or textures in addition to color. Images, again, should remain on screen long enough to be viewed and studied. And again, if you are going to put maybe those slides, any place that people can refer to them after they watch the video, you'll want to make sure that your images have that alt text. So then we come to our narration, our speaking. We want to be careful to eliminate background noise. So that's about being mindful of, when and where you record, that there's not going to be background noise. Using a good microphone can really help eliminate background noise and smooth out some of your vocal aspects. Do not add music or sound effects. The research is very clear that those contribute to cognitive overload. They are not necessary. We don't need to pep up our videos with this music, right? Just make the content interesting and relevant. You don't need to add music on top of it. Make sure that you're speaking clearly, so enunciate your words. Make sure that your narration is evenly paced. Pause at appropriate points so people can, kind of process, right, that content. Again, simple, jargon-free, conversational language. Be careful to avoid things like idioms and metaphors that folks may not understand. As you're narrating, this is your opportunity to read or describe any text or images that are on the screen. And then make sure that everything you're saying is synchronized with your on-screen action. And particularly if you're creating a video where you're demonstrating a database or something like Zotero, you want to be careful that you are narrating everything you do. It is really easy for us as librarians who search these databases all the time to mouse to another spot on the screen or to click on something because we don't even realize we're doing it. But we have to be really thoughtful that we are mindful of each step we're taking, that we narrate everything we do, and that we do one step at a time. And then as you're doing it, use descriptive directional language so that people know where to look or exactly what you've clicked on, or they know what something is labeled if they're going to be using a screen reader later. So we want to say things like, instead of just click here, we want to say, click on the chat with a librarian link in the upper right of your screen, or the search box located in the middle of the screen. Right, so we're really carefully describing it. And then kind of the test for this is listen to your video with your eyes closed. Can you listen to your video and understand everything that you've done? Then you're probably doing a pretty good job with that descriptive directional language. All right. Really quickly, I will just mention player accessibility. If you are embedding your videos in a course management system or on your library's website, you'll want to make sure that your player is keyboard compatible, and always avoid autoplay, which can be very confusing for folks, right? So you want to think a little bit about that. I think many of us put things on a place like YouTube, which is going to be a little bit more accessible. But if you're embedding these things, you're going to have to give a little bit of thought to your player accessibility. Okay, I did see a little bit of a discussion about audio description, and yes, they can contribute to information overload. So what true audio description is, like closed captions, something that people can turn on or off, right? And if you are trying to describe content as you're narrating, again, you have to give that some thought, right? It's contextual, it's what's important to know. You don't have to describe every single thing. You're describing the essentials of what people are supposed to get out of, let's say, an image, right? But I wouldn't necessarily describe the background of I wouldn't describe, let's say, the slide design that I have right now, which is that there's a green bar and a tan bar kind of off to the right. That's not really relevant. But if I have an image that I wanted you to learn something from, or like a chart of data, I would want to describe that data. Okay. And Allie's making this point, people sometimes describe irrelevant details. I'm seeing that a lot, right? Like, I'm super excited that in social media, adding alt text, people are much more aware of that need to add alt text, but then they're kind of going wild with alt text, and it's got so much irrelevant detail that what the point of the image is almost gets lost, right? But that is probably a conversation for another day. Okay. So we were going to do a little bit of an exploration activity to kind of go out and I was going to let you just kind of pick a video from your library's website and watch 2 minutes of it and see what you observe in terms of accessibility. But I'm also aware that we're getting kind of near the end of our time. And I do want to give folks a chance to ask questions. So what I'll say is if you're really interested in video accessibility, I do really recommend, set aside 20 minutes this week. Go look at a couple videos on your library's website, or just do a quick Google for something, right? Like Google library video Zotero or library video Boolean searching. You can watch about 2 minutes of a bunch of different videos. And if you think about some of these things we've talked about in terms of like narration, right? Clear audio, avoiding extraneous content. I think that some of those examples will start to kind of jump out at you and help you think about what is it that you want to do? What is it that you want to avoid in your own videos? This is an activity that we actually do in some of my classes, where we go out and we analyze some videos to see what we see. Super, super interesting and educational to do that. And I think really helps build some self-awareness then when you go to do your own work. But we have about 10 minutes. Why don't we do questions? And again, if I missed a question earlier, feel free to repeat it. But I'm going to start here with Nicole's question.
Melissa,
Advice?
Sorry, I just want to interject really fast. We actually have less.
5.
We need to finish in about 2 minutes.
Oh, no, they did not tell me that. I apologize.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Not your fault.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll take a couple questions. I am going to put that link to the Google folder, and I hope it's working. Otherwise, I'll check the permissions.
It is working. Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay.
We've got 2. Yeah, there's one. Brittany brought one up that was
the mobile question.
Yeah, about description given.
Right. So I think, that point that things can move around on like mobile and tablet devices compared to the screen is a really good one. I think, again, you might have to look at the particular thing. Is there a way to say like, oh, if you're using mobile, it will appear at the top of your screen, and you might be able to slide that in. If not, you might think about having 2 slightly different versions, right? So like, here's how to search our online catalog on your desktop. Here's how to search it on your mobile device. And you're going to have to decide that, right, on the fly, or in the context of what you're creating. Nicole, advice about captions for Instagram or TikTok. So yeah, Instagram and TikTok, not really well known for accessibility, right? Like not really built around that. What I'm going to suggest is if you go do a little Googling, there is some advice, like essentially like how you can kind of hack Instagram. TikTok, I'm not as familiar with, but you are right to be concerned. And that might be where we have to leave it. Oh, no, automatic. Can you edit them though? Because I think we know if you can't edit them, right? Oh, nice. Yeah, you got to be able to edit them, or they really aren't worth a whole lot. Okay. Since we probably need to make space for the next presentation today, thank you all for coming. I hope that you are walking away with at least a few tips for improving accessibility in your videos, or things that you might want to take back to your library and talk to your colleagues about in terms of, right, thinking about accessibility as you're creating your videos. My email is in all of the documents in that resource list. So if you've got questions, please feel free to reach out, and enjoy the rest of your day. And Cheryl, thank you so much again for being here.
Thank you so much, Melissa. That was fantastic. And I know that was great information for all of us that I personally will want to follow up on as well. So thank you again. And thank you, everyone else. Be sure to check out all the other CLAPS sessions going on today. And we hope to see you all later today and tomorrow. Thanks again, Melissa.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Oh, and the recordings will eventually be posted on the CLAPS website. We're not quite sure when those are going to happen, but they will be uploaded with correct captioning.
Fantastic.
Thanks.